Welcome to another episode of the Making History podcast. Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm Katie.
And we're the Hesses.
We're back.
We are back.
And you're back, hopefully.
Yeah.
We're here for the first time.
And if you're here for the first time, what we're going to talk about on this episode requires that you go back and listen to the previous episode. So, because we're picking up right where we left off, content-wise.
So stop listening and go back.
Yeah.
And then come back here.
Exactly. But before we jump into business, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah.
You are, how many weeks pregnant are you?
33.
Wow.
I'm having a really hard time keeping track of this one.
I
feel like
know.
I'm always like, I'm 30 something.
Yeah.
I'm in the third trimester.
Yep.
Getting close.
We know end of June
Yeah.
is when you're due, so.
Right. But yeah, I believe 33 weeks.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Super active little boy.
Mm-hmm.
Literally like feel him so much. Well, like I felt the girls a ton, obviously, when they got big too. But I had never really fully understood when moms were like, quit kicking my ribs, you know? And I was like, I don't think I've ever really felt that. But now I'm like, stop kicking my ribs in my like hip bone. Like I feel like I can feel him like pushing up on my like actual hip bone. It's so interesting.
I can't, there are certain
Bizarre.
things that I can't even in my imagination begin to think about what that's like. And that's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even in my imagination, I can't think of what it would be like for a baby to be inside of me, like pushing on my bones and my organs.
And there's not really like anything that you can equate it to. The only thing that I can like equate it to, and this like doesn't do it justice, obviously, is just like gas bubbles moving
I
around.
know, I was going to make a joke. I've had
That's
some
it.
pretty
Yeah, you've had
serious
some
gas,
pretty-
but
Almost alive.
yeah.
I love it.
I want to share just some funny things that the girls, mostly Izzy, has been saying lately.
Yeah.
So Izzy is our 3-year-old. And both of our girls, they've always been just so funny about like their bodies. Katie and I, and this is actually really important. This isn't just a preference thing. This is really important to do, but we've not given like names for body parts.
Like pet names.
Pet names. I don't like that at all. I don't like that. That's what it's called anyways.
Yeah, that probably isn't the right.
But
Nicknames.
like,
Nicknames. We've not nicknamed them.
We've not given them nicknames. My goodness. But like for as soon as the girls were talking and just like wondering about their bodies, like a vagina has been a vagina, a penis has been a penis.
Yep.
Nipples
Super
are
normalized.
nipples.
That's what they're called.
That's what they're called. And we're just going to like normalize having the body parts that we have.
Yeah.
So they've always just been just so funny about that and just very open and direct.
Yeah.
But lately, Isabel, if she sees me, is most of the time without a shirt on. She'll see me without a shirt. She'll be like, Daddy, you got boobies? I'm like, no, I don't.
No boobies.
And she'll kind of look at me and she'll go, oh, just mips? Like, yeah, just mips.
I love
it's
that
not,
it's an M.
It's not nips, it's mips.
Mips.
And that is everything to me. It's so funny.
Just mips.
Yeah.
And it's a recurring conversation too. Like she doesn't necessarily always ask it in that way.
Right.
But because that was, I think, the most comical.
And she has come to me while I'm wearing a shirt.
Yeah.
I remember one day specifically, we were sitting at the dining room table, just me and her. We were both eating something. And she kind of stood up and put her little arm around me.
Yeah.
And was just kind of like being sweet, just being real affectionate, and just kind of rubbing. And then all of a sudden she just kind of, she's kind of feeling my chest. And she goes, Dad, you got boobies in there? No. Nope. And she's like, let me see. And so I do that. I kind of open my shirt and she's looking in and she's like, oh, just mips? Yeah, just mips.
Just mips. Just need to confirm this again I have this right in my brain.
Yeah, she's like, there's a disconnect. I need to make sure I know what's going on.
It's so funny.
Yeah, it's so funny.
I love it. That just when we were talking, when you mentioned like we name body parts, they anatomically and
yes,
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it sounded more scientific than I wanted it to. The correct terms for the body, it just reminded me of Nora, what she used to call her vagina.
Go ahead. And we didn't This wasn't us.
No.
This was her.
This was like, was this after we had the conversation or before?
Yeah.
Or what led to the conversation? I think we had named it because it's like
no. I'll tell you what led to it. This was after.
Oh, I do remember what led to it.
You go ahead, tell your story.
Okay, so this was after we had told her that like her vagina is her vagina, and we're saying that in this episode more than we probably will in any other episode. So there you go. Take that for what it is. But I can't remember exactly what she said because it was long ago enough that like I don't have the exact phrase. Mm-hmm. But all you need to know is she called it her tuna.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry.
Because she was scratching.
Yeah,
right?
she was
itching.
like, yeah, my tuna's itchy. And I was like, you're what?
We're like, wait.
Your what is itchy?
Your tuna?
And I was like, that has got to stop right now.
Yeah.
Like
we're not nickname people, but if we were, it sure wouldn't be tuna.
Would never be tuna. And that was just like, that was definitely one of those moments that I was like, keep it together. You know, when you're like trying not to laugh. So it turns into a joke.
Right.
So they think it's funny. So they keep saying it. So I was like, this is something that we need to
I'll laugh about this later.
In the bud. Right.
I'll laugh about this later, but right now.
Yes.
I can't go having you. Yeah. So
tuna.
Anyways, so here's what led to the first conversation with Nora, who's our oldest, teaching her just about her body parts. Mm-hmm. So there was a period of like a couple of days. It happened like a couple of days in a row where she was just kind of like scratching. Mm-hmm. I just noticed she was kind of itching herself.
Yeah, I think she just had like a little rash or something.
She had something going on. She was itchy. And so one day you and I were with her and she was again just kind of scratching. Mm-hmm. And we were like, baby, like you're scratching a lot. Like, can we help? Like, do you need a wipe or something, you know? And she was like, oh, my buns are itchy. And we were like, what? She was like, yeah, my buns are itchy.
You're not scratching your buns.
And I remember, I remember I turned to you and I was like, I think it's time.
Yep.
We can't have her thinking she has two butts, like a front butt and a back butt. We can't. And so we were like, well, so here's what this is called, right? Yeah. And I just remember that was such a funny moment.
So funny. My buns are itchy. And thankfully, they've both like really, and I think like when you normalize the conversation, kids take it so well. It's not like, oh, it's so embarrassing. You know, it's just like, oh, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
And it shouldn't be embarrassing or weird. And it's
part of who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. But I will say, before we move on, you remember, so our sister-in-law has a friend who is an attorney. Do you remember this? She's an attorney and she deals specifically with kids who are victims of like sexual abuse and things like that.
Yes.
And she was telling our sister-in-law, and this comes from our sister-in-law, but she said if she could give, and this is what she does for a living, but she said if she could give every parent one piece of advice to help protect your kids from like sexual abuse and like child predators, it would be teach your kid the anatomically correct name for all of their body parts.
Yeah.
Don't give a vagina a nickname.
Right.
Like a kid, like a girl needs to know what it's called.
Yeah.
And she needs to know about it, that it's private and that it's,
it needs to be protected and is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I thought that was interesting that was her number one piece of advice is that parents do a horrible job of this.
Right. Yeah. Cause I mean, this can go so
no, we didn't even mean to go here. This is not even what the episode's about.
It's not. But yeah, I feel like so much of that type of conversation, it's just been turned into such a shameful subject.
Yeah, it has.
And I can't, I don't want to say like it's the world's fault or it's the church's fault or, but I think
it kind of is the church's fault.
It is a bit more the church's fault.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because the world, you live in it. It's so open about all that stuff. So it's like, they showcase it a bit too much. But the church has gone on the complete opposite side of that and be like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, no. That's like a hush.
We don't talk about sex in church.
Right. Like, how dare you?
Like,
how dare you even
how's that working out for your kids?
Know that I have boobs. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
But like, no, like we're not idiots, Yeah. Like we all know. And so I think it's just unfortunately, and I think it probably was done out of like, a good motivation of just trying to be pure or whatever. But in that, in that whole world. It's just become so like such a shame-filled area for a lot of Christians, where it's like, I feel like it took me a weird amount of time to be comfortable saying the word vagina. And I'm like, but I have one.
Yeah.
So why is it weird? Like, it shouldn't be weird.
Yeah.
Like, but anyways.
So anyways, this episode
is not about anything that we just talked about.
Yeah. That was all just a bonus. So
maybe that'll be a later episode. I don't know.
If your kids, I think we'll need to have episodes on like sexuality and teaching kids about sex and body parts. And I think that's
we may need to mark this episode like
explicit.
Maybe if your kids aren't ready to hear the word vagina, don't listen to this episode.
Maybe
we said it more times than we have.
Maybe at the front of the episode we can throw in a little disclaimer.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, if your kids are listening, they need to know. Right. Anyway, so I'm not worried about it.
There's your introduction.
Okay, so as promised, we're going to continue the conversation from last episode.
Yeah.
And in the last episode, again, if you haven't listened to it, please stop. Please stop right now and just go listen to it, because everything that we're going to talk about from here on out is not about body parts. It's about living in freedom. So last week, we introduced the concept that God is a good father.
Yes.
And that as a good father, he doesn't create an environment that is absent of mistakes or of the potential of mistakes.
Yeah.
He doesn't create an environment where his children only have one option, and that it's the right option. That it's the right choice. That it was his loving kindness to create two trees in the garden, to let Adam and Eve choose what tree they wanted to eat from, and to experience the consequences of their choice. And so that's what we're going to pick up is, as parents, what does it look like to create a healthy and safe environment in the home where kids are presented options, both good options and bad options? What does it look like to present those options? What does it look like to I guess, like employ consequences and to decide what consequences are going to be for the wrong choice, and then letting your kid experience that and then learn from it.
Yep.
So the thing about presenting choices to kids is that, on one hand, to go along with what we talked about in the last episode, it eliminates control. Because God doesn't control us.
Yeah.
He's not interested in controlling us. He wants a relationship and he wants love.
Yep.
And in order for him to accomplish that, he had to let his kids make a choice. And we want the same thing with our kids.
Yeah.
We want to raise kids who grow up to be adults who we are friends with, who we enjoy being around.
And who enjoy being around us.
Who enjoy being around us.
Yeah.
Who we feel well connected to. Who we love. There's mutual love and there's mutual trust. Yeah. There's connection.
Yep.
Those things cannot grow and cannot thrive in an environment of control.
No.
Control will suck the life out of all of that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, in truth, nobody enjoys being controlled or attempting to be controlled.
No.
Like, I'm sure if you're a parent and you're listening to this, you have attempted to control your child.
Yeah.
And I would love to know how well that went for you. Because we've definitely, tried that and had moments of that, those moments where you just get to the end of your rope, you're tired, it's bedtime, you just want them to comply, really. You just want compliance.
Yeah.
And so you're trying your very best to just get them to do what you told them to do. And when you say like, hey, go get your pajamas on. And they're like, I'd rather play.
Yeah.
It's like, no, go get your pajamas on. No, it's just that like, and there you can have that back and forth as long as you allow it.
Right.
And, so that's when the introduction of choices is brilliant.
And the thing about
such an amazing tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing about control is it breeds rebellion and it creates power struggle.
Yeah.
Like we don't really deal with a lot of power struggle because we create an environment where our kids are allowed to make a choice.
Yeah.
And if they make the bad choice, there's going to be consequences. But that's not really my problem.
Right.
Is it?
Yeah. You know it was coming.
Right.
We gave you all the options.
And we mentioned this last week, and it's worth saying again that the youngest possible age that you can start this with your kids, the better.
Yeah.
That's not to say that if you're listening to this and your kids are much older, you've got teenagers, it's not too late to start.
No.
If this is foreign to you, go ahead and start now. Start implementing this. But the reason that we started this, I mean, this was our concept going into parenting. So
thankfully,
I know.
Yeah.
We wanted to start this as soon as possible because while our kids are still young, the stakes are really low.
Yeah.
So we're not dealing with major decisions with major consequences.
Right.
We're dealing with, like you threw the iPad because I told you that it's time to turn it off. Or you hit your sister because she was annoying you.
Yeah.
Or you threw a tantrum or, you didn't want to eat your dinner. Like it's really low stakes.
Yeah.
But as our kids get older, the decisions that they're going to have to make and the consequences that entail are way more severe.
Right. Yep.
Have potential to be. Right.
Yeah. And affect a lot more people.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Typically.
So this is why it's been really crucial to us. And honestly, the fruit of this kind of parenting is I wouldn't even know what else to ask for.
I know.
If for more. Like I wouldn't even know what else I would want out of the kids that we have and the relationships we have with them.
Yeah.
Because it's been so helpful and it's created such a healthy environment.
Yeah.
Where mom and dad aren't controlling, but they let us experience hard things. And what is probably hard for them to understand now is that it's not unkind for us to let them make a bad choice and experience the consequences. It's hard to understand.
Yeah. Because like even as an adult, that can be hard to understand. Like, why would you let me make that choice?
Right.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, well, if you wouldn't have allowed me to make that choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, of course, kids are going to have a hard time really registering that at first. But the more they experience it, the more, and then super important part of that as a parent, if you're going to allow your kids to experience the consequences, is to be a safe place for them to return.
Right.
And to be a comfort, a source of comfort and a source of love and a source of like helping them find a solution. Because if you're like, well, stinks for you.
Right.
Good luck. Bye. Then that just leaves them raw and open. Like, what? Like you feel like you just got smacked in the face out of nowhere.
Right.
And then now you have no explanation for it.
Right.
So like, if you are going to be practicing this, you have to be willing to be the safe place to return to.
Right. Yeah. And that's honestly, it's not always easy. I was thinking about this recently, that there's this phrase I've heard people say, and it's been passed around like social media or whatever. And I think it's good. And it's that a person who has a religious mindset assumes that God is, that he's angry and that if I make a mistake, that I need to be afraid of him.
Yeah.
But if you have a kingdom mindset, you understand that if you make a mistake, he's actually the best and the safest place you can be.
Yeah.
Is in his arms.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he'll love you through the mistake. He'll teach you how to clean up your mistake.
Yeah.
He'll teach you how to make better choices.
Yeah. It's so good.
And it's really hard to not be this scary, angry, like figure of judgment and wrath.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that you're right. That's kind of the goal is how do I allow my kids to experience the consequences of their choice, and knowing that I'm the one administering those consequences.
Right. Yeah.
Like we do have that role too,
Yeah.
And so it's finding a way to still be the safe place. And a way I've put it, because I've been like you and I think so intentionally in the way we parent.
Right.
And so with Isabel specifically, she's not, for those of you who don't really know our kids, Isabel is more difficult than Nora is in a lot of ways. Nora's a classic first child.
Yeah.
She loves rules.
Loves rules.
She loves justice. She wants to know what the standards and expectations are, and she's going to hold herself and everybody else accountable.
Yeah.
To where Izzy's like, I know you said that, but I want to test every single boundary that you put out there and just see if you're legit,
Yep.
And so she's
great.
She's more likely to push back in a lot of ways. I've made it my goal with her to to create a relationship with her where she will allow me to discipline her, but then she'll also allow me to comfort her.
Yeah.
And it actually took a while before she allowed me to be the source of comfort.
Yeah,
that
is true. Yeah.
Because for a while it was like if I had to discipline her or get onto her, she wanted to be as far away from me as possible.
Right. Whether it was me as a source of comfort or Nora if I wasn't around, like literally like whoever else is in the room.
Yep.
Or like, I'm just going to go be by myself.
Right. Like me even having any kind of a tone, even if I didn't have a tone, if she just, if she in her head understood that what I did wasn't good and there's going to be some kind of consequence.
Yeah.
Right. That it was always like, I need to get away from dad.
Yeah.
But I've worked really hard at that. And now we've come to a point where she allows me to be a source of discipline and of comfort.
Yeah. Which is amazing.
And that's how we need to see the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he is that for us if we'll let him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. And that's the key. You have to let him because he's not gonna force you and control you into letting you comfort him. Right. That's gonna be another choice that you're making.
Yeah, that's great. The choice of letting him be who he wants to be for us.
Yeah, because if you even think about, well, I've attempted, because there have been times too where I've disciplined the girls and they just need some space or they want somebody else. But like of course, especially as a mom, I feel like your instinct is to nurture and comfort and love and, bring back to life. And so like there have been times where I've been like, no, just come here, and they're like, no, screaming and doing whatever they can to like get out of my arms. And, so you can't force comfort. You can't force being that safe place. So you have to, like you said, like be intentional and just create those times to be like, hey, I'm here. Yeah. And I'm ready to love on you. Right. When you're ready.
Yeah. And it's building trust and it's being prepared so that whenever they do take the risk of allowing you to be a source of comfort, that they actually find comfort.
Right.
So let's talk about some of the practicals of offering choices.
Sure. This
is something that it's an art form, I'm finding.
It is.
It's something that requires a lot of practice.
Yep.
But so in the interest of not being controlling, in the interest of loving our kids enough to let them make a choice, we look for ways to find options. It's hard to articulate this in a lot of ways. There are a few things about this that are hard to articulate because by allowing options, in a sense, we are letting our kids make the choice they're going to make. But that doesn't mean that we have a home of chaos where people do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Right? There's a balance there. There's this phrase that we've heard that boundaries without freedom is control. Freedom without boundaries is chaos.
Yeah.
And so there is a healthy balance between letting your kids live in freedom, but also showing them where the boundaries of that freedom lie.
Right.
So let's talk about some like specifics. Okay. So let's say Nora's on the iPad. And we know, and we always give Nora, well, either of them, it's really important to give them a heads up when we're going to be done. Yeah. So rather than just all of a sudden out of nowhere, hey, it's time to be done, turn it off.
Yep.
Because that's not kind or helpful.
No.
And so we'll say, okay, you've got 5 minutes left, or you've got 2 minutes left, to prepare her mind that iPad time's coming to an end.
It is coming to a close. Yeah.
So if she doesn't like that it's time to be done, here are her options. She can turn it off and have a good attitude. She could throw the iPad. She could close it, but then run over and hit us.
Yeah.
So technically, she can do all of those.
Yeah.
Because she's a free-thinking person.
She is totally able.
She has the ability
throw the iPad.
to do all of those. Yep. She can slam the iPad down. She can punch it. She can do any of those things.
Yep.
So what we do is we say, okay, it's going to be time to turn off the iPad. Now, and here are the options. We would present options like, okay, do you want to turn it off by yourself or do you need help?
Yeah.
Or do you want to turn it off? Or we could say like, do you want to throw the iPad or do you want to put it down gently? And we let her choose.
Yep.
And she knows now very well, which she doesn't really play on the iPad anymore.
No, not much. Yeah.
But this was always the thing because she plays Xbox now, which is unbelievable. I can't believe we got there as fast as we did.
I never saw that coming at 6.
Right.
No.
But we would say, okay, you have the freedom to throw the iPad if you want to.
Yep.
You're free to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you make that choice, you're not going to play on the iPad for like a week.
Yeah.
Or a day or a week, or just depending on the severity of, what she does.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you turn it off and you have a great attitude, you can probably play tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I see that happening.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you kind of put it out there and it's like, here are your 2 trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here they are. What are you going to do? And I'm going to let you make your choice and I'm going to let you experience the consequence.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Don't you dare present an option with a consequence and not let them experience that consequence.
Without the follow through. Oof. Yeah.
That's everything. Because if she slams the iPad down and tomororow, well,
we're like,
I need a break.
We're feeling tired. Yeah.
Because that's the thing is that, and you mentioned this, I think it was in the last episode, that parenting this way is not as convenient.
No.
Because sometimes the consequence would be, well, like you just don't have access to the iPad. Guess what? The iPad's mine.
Yeah.
And you don't get to play it today because you threw it yesterday. And that's not how we take care of our things.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to present an option that has a consequence and they choose that option, you have to let them experience that consequence. Otherwise, there will be no reason for her to not throw the iPad every time.
Right. Yeah.
It's time to get off.
Yeah, you say there's going to be a consequence, but I'm not actually experiencing that. So there's actually no real consequence. It's all just talk.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, it becomes a little bit more like difficult as a parent, if that is like talking about this specific example, because the next day or a week or whatever, no iPad time. So that could be your only source of like getting a break as a parent or having some time to like go cook dinner or whatever. But now you're having to be more involved. You are, which of course like,
oh no, I have to be involved.
Shoot, I'm an involved parent.
Spend time with my kids.
But like, the reality is like we all need a break sometimes. And so sometimes those things having access or with kids having access to those things is like a breath of fresh air during the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you take that away, you're also taking it away from yourself.
Yep.
But the good that comes from follow through is going to way outweigh that 20 minutes of quiet that you get.
Well, this type of parenting requires long-term vision for who you want your kids to become. And it's the willingness to make a sacrifice for what's convenient right now for the sake of helping my kids become the adults I want them to be one day.
Absolutely.
And that's what sacrifice is. And that's what maturity is. Trying to kids are immature and we want them. And part of immaturity is not knowing how to say no to something now for the sake of a better future for me, for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge part of it.
Yep.
Is being willing to be inconvenienced as a parent. So like, think about some of the things that you wouldn't want your kids to do. We don't want our kids standing on the dining room table.
No.
We don't want them coloring on the walls. We don't want them peeing on the floor. But all of the things you could go make a list of all of the things you don't want your kids to do. And all of those things will be things that they have the freedom to do.
Yeah.
They do. They have the freedom.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, and you and I are really particular about this. And a lot of people, like I have taught this a lot of different times to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And people always get hung up on this. But I love to pose the question to people, what is something that you have to do? And sometimes people come up with like, well, you have to feed your kids.
Yeah.
You have to do this.
You have to go to work.
That. You have to go to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you don't have to do any of those things. You don't have to go to work.
Nobody is forcing you to do any of these things.
Now, if you don't go to work, you probably won't have a job the next time you show up.
Right.
But you could choose that.
Yeah. It's a valid option.
Yeah. And all of this is about becoming responsible people and about raising kids who become responsible people.
Yeah.
Who take responsibility for the choices they make and that they don't blame shift.
Yeah.
They don't do what Adam did in the garden.
Right.
Lord, this is your fault and the woman's fault.
Yep.
Right. But they take full responsibility for the choices they make and the consequences that entail. So your kids, you don't want them standing on the dining room table. Well, they could.
Yeah.
And so let's say we walked in the dining room and Izzy was just standing fully on the dining room table.
Totally believable.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. She's kind of a wild card. Sometimes she
Yep.
just tries stuff to see what happens.
Let's see. This looks like fun.
Now, one thing you have to consider is this a first-time offense? Because sometimes kids might not know that what they're doing like isn't good.
Right.
Like legitimately, sometimes they don't know. So imagine how you felt if you did something and all of a sudden a police officer walked up to you, like you were just walking on the sidewalk, and a police officer walked up to you and handed you a fine for $500 and said, "You're not allowed to walk on the right side on Fridays.
Yeah.
Sorry, $500." Yeah. And like you were like, "I've never heard that rule."
Yeah.
He's
When
like,
did
"Well,
this
that's
happen?"
not my problem."
Yeah.
Parents do that stuff to kids all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
It's a first-time offense.
Blindsided. Yeah.
Kids don't actually know that what they're doing. And so when that happens, if it's the first time, you teach them and you tell them, "Hey, Izzy, I get that you're having fun right now, but in this house, we don't stand on tables.
Yep.
So, I'm going to ask you to get down."
Yep.
At that point, she has two options. She can listen and obey, or she can decide, actually, this is fun. I don't really care what you think. I'm going to keep standing on the table.
Yeah.
And then the options come a little different because you do have the freedom to stay. But as the person who's in charge, I'm not going to allow you to keep standing on the dining room table. So the options now, they were, do you want to stay or do you want to get off? If you've chosen to get off, it's like, or to stay on.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, do you want to climb down by yourself or do you want me to help you? Because like either way, like the direction this is going is you're going to get off the table.
Right. The end result is
that I want you to remain as free as possible in this transaction. I don't want to eliminate your freedom, but I want to help navigate the choices in a way and create a situation where you're free, but you're also going to experience consequences of a bad choice.
Yeah.
If it comes to that point where she won't get down by herself and I need to come help her, I could say, okay, I'm going to come help you. Do you want to sit on the couch just by yourself for a few minutes, or do you want me to come sit with you? It's like we're getting off the table, but I want you to choose as much as possible how this is going to go.
Yeah.
You would be surprised in the mind of a little kid how necessary it is for them. They can't articulate it. It's completely innate. It's built in and it's subconscious, but there is a need for them to have freedom and control of themselves and control of what's happening in a situation.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. They want to know, like, I am capable of doing things, because if you were to not even like give any choices, if you just went over, snatched the kid off the table, like, hey, we don't stand on the table.
Smack them on the back of the head.
They're like, well, like what?
Yeah.
Like who made this rule? When did this rule become a thing?
And then when you walk out of the room, what are they going to want to do?
Get right back.
They're going to want to get right back up.
Yep. And say like,
because
I wonder if that'll happen again.
Yes, because they didn't have any say in what just happened.
Yep.
If given the choice between control and rebellion, kids will choose rebellion because they don't want to be controlled.
Yeah.
And so if rebellion is the only outlet that they see that is connected to their freedom to make a choice, they will choose that every time because it actually goes against every fiber of our being. It goes against our nature to be controlled because we're not wired for control. And your kids understand that at a young age, that they're not wired for that.
They may not know how to communicate that, but they know it.
It is a deep-seated subconscious need that every person has.
Right.
And you're right. Kids can't articulate it. They can't communicate it, but they will show you every single time that if they feel controlled, they will do whatever they can to feel in control again.
Yep.
If that's throwing a tantrum, they'll throw a tantrum.
Yep.
If it's lashing out and hitting, they'll do that. If it's climbing right back up on the table, they'll do that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't feel like they were in control of what happened.
Right. And the more you push back, like, hey, don't throw a tantrum. Don't yell at me. It's like, oh, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
I'm going to yell at you again.
Yeah.
And even louder so everybody can hear me.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that like having that innate sense of like just needing to know that like I have some control. I think that is like, while it can sort of feel like a negative thing when kids are young, I think it's actually a really beautiful thing, because that just shows us even more how much God does not want to control us, because that's something that he put inside of us, that need to not be controlled, because that's not who he is. So that's showing us even more of like who we are as his kids, of like having that like desire for like controlling ourselves. And, you know, we as parents are the boundary setters, so that we help our kids navigate that need and show them like, hey, like, yes, you have the ability to make this choice. However, I'm going to show you the best way to navigate those choices. And it's not like controlling them in those choices in any way. It's just presenting them with the options and saying, hey, like, this is what you got.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's say Nora's playing Lego Fortnite, which she's doing right now upstairs as we record this.
Yep.
But let's say we go up and we say, all right, baby, you've got 2 more minutes. And she, when it's time to turn it off, she throws a tantrum.
Yeah.
She knows that, okay, well, this wasn't the way. So tomorrow you're like, we're not going to play Lego Fortnite tomorrow. But the thing is, I'll say, and she may go on, this isn't fair, whatever, however kids want to justify what's going on. But I'll say, like, I'm sorry, like, hey, I'm sorry that you made that choice. Next time, we'll try it again.
Yep.
And we'll see.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how little we have to deal with poor behavior.
Yeah.
Because kids are able to understand, younger than you would think, that I am in control of myself. I'm able to make my own choices, and my choices have consequences. Yeah. So I'm going to make a good choice.
Yep.
And it's that simple.
Yep. Because, I mean, you learn really quickly when things go better for you. It just, it's more fun.
Yeah. Life is fun.
And then you get to do the fun things again.
Right.
Like at the playground. Like it used to be more of a struggle with Nora and Izzy, both of them, of like, hey, girls, we got 5 minutes to go, you know, like until we need to go pick one more thing to do. And at first I was like, oh, you know, like, oh man. But that was like, you know, the beginning of communicating those boundaries. So like, okay, we have this that we need to get to. They just need a clear outline of like what's going on. So it's not just like because when you don't know what's going on and you feel so out of control, it feels like terrible. Like as an adult, if I don't have like somewhat of an idea of what's going on in my day, I'm like, I feel lost and confused the entire time. So giving our kids those clear expectations is so fair and so kind to them, to like just give them a heads up on what's going on. And now typically when we go, and I will not say that it's perfect because there are harder days, because we all have days. So we have to remember that as parents too, that like there's going to be some times where like I want to push back more just because I want to. Yeah. You know,
there are going to be moments where the choices are, do you want to listen or do you want me to kill you right now? Because that's where we're at.
Yep. But like just the other day we were at the park, and Nora, this park that we were at has like a creek on one side of the road, and then it's got the playground on the other side. Nora wanted to stay in the creek. Izzy wanted to go to the playground. Yeah. And, you know, we live in a safe enough place that I feel okay, like not being within a foot of them at all times. You know, if I have them in eyesight, I'm good. And so I was like, okay, Nora, we've got 5 more minutes. You can stay in the creek. Izzy, we've got 5 more minutes. You can go do a couple more things at the playground, but then it's going to be time to go. And wouldn't you know it, they did great. Yeah. They had a clear expectation of what was going on. They each got to make a choice of where they wanted to go, because I gave them the choice. Do you want to stay here? Do you want to go over here? They made different choices. That was okay in the moment. And so they each got to do their own thing, and 5 minutes was up, and I was like, all right, girls, you know, like I called to Nora because she's older. So I was just like, just come walk to me. And we went and we got Izzy, and she came down the slide. We got in the car, no tears, no throwing a fit over, but I wanted to do this too, you know, because they had that clear expectation of the boundary for that time. Yeah. Yeah. And it's really simple if you just put it into practice.
It is. It's simple in theory.
Yeah.
It is an art form learning how to present two choices that actually make sense.
Yeah.
Now,
you can't just say,
well,
do you want to do this or do you want to like get smacked? Because is there actually freedom in that choice?
well, yeah. And so we need to have the next episode be about this because we've already run.
Yeah.
We've already run along, and I have a lot more I want to say on this. I'll say this, and this will lead into our next episode, that the choices need to make sense and the consequences need to be natural.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like you just said, if everything is always, hey, do you want to listen to me or do you want me to hit you?
Yeah.
That's lazy. That's not creative.
No.
And it's not actually teaching your kids the way that consequences work in life.
Right.
If I stop showing up to work, if somebody stops showing up to work, chances are the boss isn't going to spank them, right? Chances are.
Most likely.
Let's hope. And if you work somewhere, you need to find a new job. If that's
if that's
what's going on. But if somebody shows up, like we have friends who are business owners.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't show up to work, no call, no show, like, I hate that for you, but you don't work here anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to find somebody who will show up. That's the consequence.
Yep.
If I keep getting in car accidents over and over and over, and they're my fault, the insurance is going to go up and up and up. It's going to cost a lot more. That is a natural consequence.
Right.
Right. Our insurance adjuster isn't going to come spank me.
Yeah.
While there is a place for spanking. I'm not going to go there. This will be yet another episode.
Yep.
Because there's a lot, there's just so much we want to say about all of this. There is a place for spanking, but spanking is very rarely the natural consequence.
Yes. Yep.
And I will leave it at that because we need to wrap this up. Cliffhanger. We'll go.
You want to know more? You have to come back.
You're going to have to keep listening because we have a lot more that we want to say about this. And the thing is, too, we've been doing this, like our kids are young, but we've been doing this long enough to know that the fruit of this is good.
Yes.
It's like what we're doing is working. We have the environment that we want. We have the relationships that we want. We have the culture in our home that we want. And all of that is primarily a product of this type of parenting that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Let's end here.
Okay.
Okay. For everybody who listened, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.